So today I want to talk about something that's a little bit more difficult for me to talk about than most other subjects, which is about my personal life. You see, back in January 2013, I posted a tweet. Now, on that day, I'd been sober for 365 days, and it was a proud milestone for me. And so I put up online. And a few days after I put up that tweet, I received an email from a journalist. Her name was Nan Hee In, and she is a freelance journalist. And she told me that she was going to write an article for the South China Morning Post, one of those health and wellness articles. And she saw my tweet and she wanted to feature me in her article. I did a bit of some background research to see if she was legit. She was, and after thinking about it, I agreed to the interview. And just this morning, on Saturday, March 6th, that article went online. It's on the South China Morning Post right now, and I'll link it down below. I've mentioned in the past, in my tweets especially, about my struggles with alcoholism. I wrote tweets on specific milestones when I reached day 50, when I reached day 100, and day 365. And although I've talked about it in the past, I never went into any of the really gritty details. It was always very sanitized. And this article that I interviewed for, it goes a little bit more into detail. It talks a bit more about my life, but even this article was a bit more sanitized than my real story. And some of the things that were in the article were not accurate. I don't blame the journalist for the inaccuracies. I think it was because I failed to communicate properly. So I want to get something straight. Uh, where do I start? Well, maybe from the beginning would be good. I did not grow up with an alcoholic parent. In fact, my father is allergic to alcohol, and the only time my mother ever drank when we were growing up was at church during church communion, and that doesn't really count. And furthermore, I grew up in Brunei. Now, for those of you who don't know, Brunei is a tiny Muslim kingdom in Southeast Asia that practices Sharia law. The only way that you could legally buy alcohol was if you grabbed your passport and crossed the border to go to Malaysia to buy beer there. And, being an underage teenager with really strict parents, alcohol was just not on the menu for me. It was just not an option. I didn't start drinking until I went to college. I went to college in Wisconsin. I was 19 years old when I first arrived there, and I remember the first thing that I drank. It was Budweiser because it was the king of beers, and if it's the king of beers, it had to be good, right? I also remember the first time I got drunk. It didn't take much. In fact, I drank 6 cans of beers and it knocked me the hell out. That was the very first time that I got drunk. But here's the thing about getting drunk and alcohol. And I say this with all sincerity from the bottom of my heart. Getting drunk is the best feeling in the world, for me at least. You know how some people, the best feeling in the world is waking up and smelling a freshly brewed cup of coffee, or the crisp touch of newly printed money, or being able to accomplish something that other people tell you that you can't do. Those are awesome feelings. For me, getting drunk is the best feeling. Uh, I'm not gonna lie, I don't truly understand people who can say no to after a single drink. The more I drank, the better I felt, and I never understood why anyone would want to, stop feeling that way. The more you drink, the longer that feeling lasts. And so when I drank till I literally could not drink anymore. But, we're jumping the shark a little bit. Maybe we should rewind just a bit. When I started drinking when I was in college, you know, it's a cliche story. I had grown up under strict parents in a really conservative country that was very restrictive in many ways. And so when I went to Wisconsin, I was away from my family for the very first time in my life. In fact, I was a full ocean and half a continent away from anyone who resembled family. I had independence. I was surrounded by similar age kids in a college dorm room. Drinking was fun. It was party time. In fact, my friends and I had a saying back then. We had a word for every day of the week. There was Mad Monday, Tipsy Tuesday, Wild Wednesday, Thursday, Fucked Up Friday, Slosh Saturday, and Sunday was a day of rest. That was how much we drank. We drank almost every day. And it was fun. We got to let our guards down. We talked and bantered and we joked around. We laughed. I've let my guards down especially, and I became a lot more flirty. And you know that alcohol reduces people's standards because those people, a lot of those people, flirted right back. Alcohol was a great social lubricant and it was fun. But as much as I love the feeling of getting drunk, as much as I love all the fun that I had, alcohol is also the thing that I hate. And that's because it's something that ruined so many aspects of my life. It ruined relationships, it ruined prospects, it ruined how I feel about myself in a lot of ways. The thing about all that fun that I had with all my friends when I first started to drink, yeah, it was a great time, but the thing is, nothing lasts forever. Uh, Sometimes things change so slowly that by the time you realize that they've actually changed a long time ago, but it's only just now that you're realizing it. As I said, at first drinking was fun, but after a certain point, I realized that I wasn't drinking anymore because it was fun. I was drinking because it was the only way that I could look at myself in the mirror without wanting to kill myself. Uh, if you read the article that I linked down below, it said that after I quit drinking, one of the benefits that I started to enjoy was that I no longer had this self-loathing that I felt when I was hungover. That is inaccurate. Self-loathing is something that did not go away just because I stopped drinking. Self-loathing was something that was always there, but it became a lot stronger. It became more pronounced the more I drank. Uh, I was never a really big fan of myself. I'm a grump and I'm a cynic. But even so, I'm able to see the best in other people, but never in myself. I'm one of those people who's plagued by a very clear and long memory. I'm able to remember things that happened 25 years ago as though they just happened 25 minutes ago. But the thing about all those memories is that none of them are happy memories. I don't remember the times when I won a competition or when I got the job of my dreams or when that hot girl agreed to go on a date with me. And none of those things. I don't remember any of that. What I do remember are the things that remind me of moments of great humiliation and pain. I remember things when I said the wrong thing to the wrong person, when I got rejected for a job, or when I got rejected by a woman, when basically all the worst memories of my life that make me want to curl up into a little ball. Those are the things that I remember. And so, yeah, I was never a big fan of myself, but when I was drunk, at least during those few hours, life was just a ball. When you go to a bar with your friends, it's going to be a good time regardless. But it's still a good time even if you go to a bar by yourself. Even if you are at a bar by yourself and you're surrounded by no one but strangers, a few drinks in, that person who's sitting right next to you is going to be a best friend. You're going to trade jokes with that person. You're going to tell him intimate life stories. You're going to tell him stuff that you just made up on the spot because who cares? You're never going to see that person again. And within a few hours, all these people at the bar, people whom you never knew just a few hours ago, are now your best friends and you're all singing along to Bohemian Rhapsody. It's a great time. And that was why I drank. It was when I felt happy, when I didn't hate myself. And drinking was something that, objectively speaking, alcohol is a depressant. And so I know, looking back, that alcohol did not help with my crippling self loathing at all, one bit. But during those few hours, it was a bit of relief that I got. And so I love to drink. There's also another bit in that article that was a bit inaccurate, and it's a part where they said that I had a gash on my head. It was a gash right above my left eyebrow, right over here. And the article said that I had no recollection of how I got it, and it's kind of true, in the sense that I blacked out that evening, and so I don't remember how exactly I got to that point. But it didn't take much of a deduction to figure out what happened. Uh, I remember that it was spring 2017, and when I woke up, I was literally face floor on the sidewalk, and I woke up in a puddle of my own vomit. And one of my glasses, I think it was the right lens, was missing, and I was bleeding from right above my left eyebrow, and I saw that I had hit my head right on a piece of rock. It was spring. It was the middle of the night. I had slept outside that in that entire night for at least a few hours. If I had hit the rock wrong, I could have lost my eye. If I had stayed out too long, I could have gotten frostbite. All things considered, I kind of emerged not so bad from that evening. But the worst part of it was that I was literally 20 to 30 meters away from my apartment building. I could not make just a few additional steps to get in my own home. That's how bad things got, and I got lucky that day. As I said, I don't stop drinking until I literally can't stop drinking. I remember what happened that night, kind of. I was at the bars with people, and I drank. We all had a good time, but it was time for the bar to close, and so everyone went home. But I was still conscious, which meant that I had not obviously drunk enough. And so, after I left the bar, I went to a restaurant at one of those 24, it was one of those 24-hour diners that also served alcohol. And I remember ordering bottles of soju, and then I blacked out. I don't remember what happened after that. And then I woke up the next morning in that sort of a condition. And so, it's really hard to confess how much you dislike yourself and about the self-destructive nature of your habits, and how at the end of the day there's really no one else to blame for this. It's something that I did to myself. No one put a gun to my head and told me to drink. It was a series of choices that I made. I refused to admit that I had a problem with alcohol. For me, the bit that was true in the article was that I did call myself an enthusiastic drinker. I told myself that I could quit any time that I wanted. The only difference between me and other people was that I enjoyed drinking a bit more than the common person. That was what I told myself. I could quit whenever I wanted. But the problem was that I didn't want to quit. Now, looking back, it wasn't that I didn't want to quit. It was I couldn't quit, but I didn't see it in those terms. For me, it was a choice, and my choice was to not quit because I enjoyed drinking. And that day, when I woke up with a gash on my forehead, that was a wake-up call. I could have died that night. And so I told myself that I was going to shape up, that I was going to quit drinking. And that was my first serious voluntary attempt at trying to quit drinking. I say voluntary because between 2003 and 2020, There was a stretch of time when I didn't drink, and that was between 2011 to 2013. And that was because that was when I was serving in the Korean Army. Now, when I served in the Korean Army, I lived on base, and as a conscript, alcohol was strictly forbidden. And so during those 21 months, with the exception of those few times when I was able to go out on vacation, when I had leave, I was stone cold sober for most of those 21 months. But beyond those 21 months, there were very brief, maybe just a few days in between most days when I was sober. I was drunk most days between 2003 and 2020. That's how much I drank. I had an alcoholic I had an alcohol problem, which I refused to acknowledge. So when I woke up that morning in 2017 with a gash in my forehead, still bleeding, uh, I told myself that I was going to shape up, that I was going to stop drinking, and that's exactly what I did. I quit drinking cold turkey. I stopped going to the bars. I stopped going to the convenience stores to pick up liquor. I was stone cold sober for 6 months. But the mistake that I made during those 6 months was that I did not tell anyone that I was trying to quit drinking. I was embarrassed. I felt ashamed about telling people because that was the first time when I admitted to myself that I have a problem, that I'm an alcoholic. And I didn't want people to look at me differently. I didn't want people to whisper behind my back, oh, he's an alcoholic, he's got trouble, he's got issues. I didn't want to hear any of that. And so I didn't tell anyone. I made up excuses. I said, oh, I'm busy, I'm tired, I've got a meeting the next day. I would come up with a million excuses to not go to the bars. And I did that for 6 months. And for 6 months while I was sober, I thought I was doing a great job. But because I didn't tell anyone, I didn't have a support system. It was all on me. And because I was sober for 6 months, one of the mistakes that I made was thinking that, hey, I've been sober for 6 months, which means that I've got this. I'm not an alcoholic. I can control myself. I've got self-discipline. And what that means is that I can go to the bars and have one beer, and that would be okay. And that's exactly what I did. 6 months after I stopped drinking, I met some friends at the bar, and I had exactly one beer. And I stopped drinking. And I went home, sober. You can't get drunk off of a single beer. And when I got home, I felt incredibly proud of myself. Yes, I do have self-discipline. I do have the ability to stop. And so I can stop whenever I want, and it's okay to have just one beer at a time. And so the next day, I had another beer and I stopped. The following day, I had 2 beers and I stopped. The day after that, I had 3 and I stopped. The day after that, I had 4. And before long, I was back into my old habits again, drinking till I dropped every night. And here's another reason why I didn't tell anyone why I tried to quit drinking. I've seen other people try to quit drinking, and the thing about relapse, oh boy. When someone admits that they have an alcohol problem and that they want to quit, and when that's the first time that person makes that leap, this the immediate response that the person gets from his or her family, friends, and coworkers are immensely positive. Everyone is applauding and cheering and supportive and saying things like, we're behind you, you've got this, we love you. It's all amazingly positive. But the moment the person falls off the wagon and relapses, that positivity starts to go away. Not immediately, not completely. That takes time. After the first relapse, it becomes less positive. It's still supportive, but people start saying mean things. Oh, he was weak. He couldn't handle it. He lacks discipline. And that negativity grows, the more times that person relapses. And eventually, over time, even their family leave. It's the truth of the matter. Uh, Alcoholism is not something that you can just get over once and be done with. It's an ongoing struggle, and some people find it much more difficult to overcome than others. And when people stumble and fall, that support network has to be there. But people can't be expected to be patient forever. Love is not infinite. Patience is not infinite. Everything is finite. And eventually, over time, people go away, people lose hope. And that is the worst thing that can happen to an alcoholic who's trying to recover. Losing faith, losing trust of the people that he or she loved, that's the final nail in the coffin. And I've seen that happen before. And I didn't want that to be me. I thought that if I just don't tell anyone, you know, it's all on me. No one will praise me, but also no one will point fingers at me and laugh. And so I kept things to myself. And that's why when I relapsed, because I didn't have a support network, I relapsed hard. And by late summer, early fall 2017, I was back into my old habits again. And every night, almost every night, I was drinking myself stupid. Fast forward a few years, and it was January 13, 2020. And that morning, I woke up with yet another massive hangover. I stunk of booze. I had alcohol coming out of my pores. My mouth smelled of stale cigarettes. My head was pounding. I couldn't see straight. The usual. But something else happened that morning for me. And it was a feeling of immense boredom. When you go to the bars with your friends, I'm sure that you've all experienced this. If you haven't drunk anything, good for you. But if you have drunk and if you've gone to a bar, I know you've experienced it. You go to a bar with your friends and it's always the same conversations, right? You're always talking about that one time in college when so and so did what, or you're all making fun of the same person at work, or you're all bitching about the same boss or whatever. It's always the same jokes and it's always the same conversations, and eventually that gets stale. And I experienced that with my friends, and eventually I didn't want to hang out with my friends anymore because I got tired of having the same conversations, and the conversations got in the way of my drinking. And so I went to the bars alone and I talked to strangers, and sure, I was still having the same conversations, but I was talking to different people, and that got fun for a little while, but over time that got boring too. And so eventually talking to people was not something that I enjoyed while drinking. I just wanted to drink. I didn't want to socialize. I just wanted to get drunk. And so over time, went to the bars less frequently, and I started drinking massively at home. It was cheaper, and I didn't have to waste time talking. But that morning, when I woke up, after I spent hours drinking alone at home, I woke up feeling bored. I had reached that point when I got bored with my own company, when I got bored with my own drinking. And miraculously, I had enough sense in my mind to realize that this is the moment that I should seize. If I'm feeling bored right now with all the drinking, even though I'm drinking alone at home, even though I don't want to drink with other people right now, if I don't seize this moment of boredom right now and capitalize on it, then I would never quit drinking. And so that morning, I told myself, I'm bored with everything. So I'm going to try to be sober again. Now, I've been drinking heavily since 2003. I was smoking cigarettes for even longer. And, smoking is even worse than drinking. And so I thought to myself, if I'm going to quit drinking, I'm going to quit smoking too. I'm bored enough as it is anyway. Let's give it a try. And yeah, so in 2020, in the year of COVID, in the year of social distancing, I quit drinking and smoking. It wasn't always as easy. The first month was particularly hard. But as it says in the article, I went on to Reddit and I met some like minded people online. I actually wanted to try to join a group like Alcoholics Anonymous, not AA itself. The religiosity behind AA kind of got to me. But, COVID, so I went online, sought help. And when I first went online to this subreddit called Stop Drinking, there were people who were posting online about how they've been sober for 1,000 days and how their lives were so much better than when they were still drinking and that they never wanted to go back. And this was when I was just starting. I was in day one. And when I saw posts like this about people who had been sober for 1,000 days, uh, despite what you might think, I did not find that inspirational at all. It didn't resonate with me. When I saw those posts, I thought, Jesus, 1,000 days, how am I going to reach that goal? I'm having the shakes right now. How can I even think about being sober for 1,000 days? And it didn't strike me as something that was helpful. But I stuck around for a day, and someone in that subreddit reached out to me. And that person told me that I should not look at the number of days of the more successful people have been sober because that's not my story. What that person told me was to focus on one day at a time. There's a mantra that those people at the subreddit type every time they leave a post. And the mantra is, I will not drink with you today. The important word being today. And the person told me that if I set a goal for myself and say that I will stop drinking and that I will be sober for a full year or 10 years or whatever the time it is, that time feels like an eternity. Like when we think back, when we look back at the things that happened in the previous year, a year feels short. But when we're looking forward into the future, a year feels like forever. And that feeling is what cripples a lot of people's attempts at trying to be sober. And so the person told me that instead of looking at the number of days that other people have been sober, that I should focus on just today. I will not drink today. I can't control what happens 10 days from now or even a year from now, but I can kind of control what happens today. I can tell myself that after end of work, I'm not going to the convenience store to pick up a bottle. I can tell myself that instead I'm going to go home and drink a cup of tea, that I'm going to read a book or do whatever else. And that's what I did. That was probably the best advice that I'd gotten, that I should just focus on today. Now, earlier I said that I was incredibly embarrassed to talk about my attempt at sobriety. So, why am I talking about it now? Well, like I said, I needed the support system. I wanted to make things public. Now, here on YouTube, not that many people watch this channel. On a good day, maybe I get about a couple of dozen people who watch my videos. But on Twitter, especially, where I have more than 4,000 Twitter followers, whatever I write on Twitter tends to get a bit more of an audience than here on YouTube. And so I started talking a little bit about my attempt at sobriety on Twitter, because by writing it on Twitter, by getting people to know about my attempts at recovery, at the very least, even if I've not met any of these people in real life, even if it's all just social media, even then, it would still be some level of a support network and some level of accounting that I did not have myself the first time that I tried to be sober in 2017. And when I agreed to this interview for the South China Morning Post, it was the same thing that I thought. Now, I admit that it was not the easiest decision to make for me to make this public, not just for the South China Morning Post, but for social media too, because nothing that goes on the internet ever gets deleted. Everything's permanent. What if this might someday affect my employment prospects, or what if I someday, maybe if I have kids and they find this article about me, what would I say to them? There are all these kinds of different thoughts that I had, but I thought, I already talked about this on Twitter. I already talked about this on YouTube before. Might as well agree to this newspaper article and have a much wider audience and get people to know about the story, because a bigger safety net, a bigger network of support might not be the worst thing that could happen to me. It's embarrassing and it's humiliating to have all of my dirty laundry aired out like this, but when I weigh the pros and cons, I might change my mind in the future, but for now, the pros outweigh the cons, and that's why I agreed to this interview. Relapse is a thing. I cannot and will not say that I'm going to be sober for the rest of my life. All it takes is a single push, one really bad day for me to want to reach for the bottle. Now, it's not as bad as it used to be. Now, back when I first started quit, within the first week, I got the shakes. I desperately wanted to drink. I could have killed for a drink. It's not that bad now. I don't crave to drink as nearly as much as I used to. But it's still there. And it will always be there. And I'm not arrogant enough or stupid enough to think that I can say I'll never drink again and it'll be the end of that I'll live happily ever after. That's not how life works. That's not how alcoholism works. I could relapse someday. I hope I don't, but I could. And I'm making this video so that if for no other reason, someday I can look back at this video, if I do ever relapse, and say, okay, I've relapsed, but I gotta try again, because what other choice is there? Alright, so I get that this was a long video, that this was not a particularly funny video. I apologize for that. Next week, I promise, I'm going to post more entertaining content. But yeah, this was my story, and yeah, that's about it. Alright, so you know the drill. If you like this content, click on like, click on subscribe, notification bell. If you have comments, leave it down below. I'm John Lee, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.